All right, I'm in the Zoom, but you can just all right, just want to well, 20 minutes or less, but if you when you need to go. All right, see you now. Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Zoom after show. Do you like the Monster Mash in the background, Joey?
That's good stuff, dude. That's good stuff. Great interview, man. That was awesome.
That was oh, hold on. It doesn't come on the screen, Tom, unless you say something.
Yeah, that was truly amazing. Basketball and the meaning of life, boys and girls. I mean, just
I had no, I just didn't even, and there were so many things that I wanted to say and talk about. We didn't even talk about business, and this is the beauty, and it, what's so amazing about this show, about today's show, I should say, is that this interview was going to happen on July 27th. And I have grown so much since July 27th. Yeah. I don't know that I would have been able to have this conversation with him on July 20th.
I mean, you're right. You have the wisdom to go with the flow, to let the conversation organically develop in its own beauty, rather than being forced into pre-established, patterns. That's just awesome. I mean, that's what's so great about this show now. I mean, you could have been horrible in the early days for all I know.
What do you mean could have? I'm texting Jonathan Sackett, and I think he's coming now. But I mean, what a gentleman! What a story!
Oh.
And what I'm not sure if it was 100% obvious, but from what I found out from a bit of research and talking to people, his dad basically threw fights.
Yeah, most of them did.
Yeah,
most of them did.
And that's what was happening. And so the wink wasn't as much, "Hey, I'm going to be okay, son." It was almost like, "Hey, listen, this is part of the deal."
Yeah.
But there was something I just welled up with such emotion when I thought to myself, a father just lying on the canvas, having just been pummeled in the head, and seeing his son looking at him. I mean, it's very emotional.
Yeah.
He's just a good dude, man, and you can see that, and not just his words, but his actions. And I love the fact that he replaced the jersey of his kid for his. And that's just such a magnanimous thing, because most kids that grow up with a phenomenally successful father have that huge problem of filling those big shoes. And literally in this case, I think he's probably got a size 17 shoe, but it's just a huge example of who he is as a man now.
Oh, just hold on. He was struggling to get in. So bit.ly/CoronaTV. I didn't realize he was trying to after show. Is that right, guys?
Yep.
Let me see. bit.ly/CoronaTV after show. I was wondering. Yeah, I mean, he's just there's a beautiful story as well about his basketball, which maybe he'll tell you now. And it's funny because, as I said, we didn't, he scored 50 points against Michael Jordan's Bulls.
Wow.
So he played against Michael Jordan, that Bulls team, and he scored 50 points. He, I mean, what he's done for Kentucky, I mean, the achievements are incredible, and yet he shies away from that, and it's not part of his. I mean, it's just the contradictions, the beautiful contradictions. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
Good mommy. It sounds like he had a really good mommy. I mean, good daddy too, but she taught him a ton about the importance not putting all your eggs in one basket, specifically at basketball.
Harry, well, we're not even going to do a big fanfare, because what I've learned about Jamal now is we don't need big fanfares. We'll just be like, oh, hey, Jamal.
Hey, Jamal.
Hey, Joseph. There you go.
Before you got on, Jamal, we were all doing this.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, thank you for just your story today, man. That's something we kind of thought, okay, we're going to talk about basketball, we're going to talk about business, but man, you opened up your heart, and that meant so much to all of us, so that we all end up being philosophers here, thinking about family and values and integrity and authenticity and kind of the stuff that's behind why sport and business can matter, in our lives. It's what we bring to it. It's that we do it right. And you just gave us a great example of that and made us think about ourselves as sons and fathers and all that. So you couldn't ask for a better episode than this. So thanks, man, for making it so good.
I want to
go ahead.
No, you go, and then I'm going to tell a story for you.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for that. That Joseph made it really easy for that to come out, and and those are the things that I enjoy doing, because we can all talk about our history and our accomplishments, but often what I was looking for as a kid was not necessarily the accomplishments of other people, but give me the depth of how you got to where you were.
Yeah.
What choices did you make? Those, don't tell me that you need to raise your elbow or shoot the ball higher, or you need to jump quicker. Tell me about your mindset going into it. Yeah. What triggers you? And those things are important. I'm a historian buff. I love biographies. I love the ones where people get into the weeds of actually who they are and why they made certain decision and what makes them great or what makes them fail, you know? Yeah. So I'm very much into that. And I hope that it seems like it came across, and these are the type of interviews that I love doing, because to me, they're more personal connections more than an interview.
Yeah, it's the inner game and it's the inner man, because that's what's behind everything. And everybody wants to talk about the outer stuff, but it's the inner stuff that makes that happen. So
correct, 100%.
Hey, Tom, did you? Can we see your notes?
Oh yeah, listen, look, Jamal, man, I have so many. That's page 1 of my notes.
That's
I've got
awesome.
things in highlighter, and they got page 2 going on.
That's
and I
awesome.
tell you, I don't waste. I should write these up, man. I could have a best-selling book. I shouldn't say that, or you'll ask me for some royalties. But it was awesome.
No question.
Awesome.
Why do you think I'm asking you about your notes? Because now I'm asking Tom. I'm asking Tom to post his notes every day.
Yeah.
So I want 2 things, Jamal. One is I was saying to the guys, and they're all. There's so many interesting things happening. Joey, Seth, and Tom are all regulars on our small little CoronaTV after show. The funny thing is, this is it's like a hidden jewel, but and yet it doesn't. We think we want it to grow, but we also know that if it does grow, we don't want it to grow because we know everyone by name. And quite frankly, when people come on that we don't know, we actually think we're being Zoom bombed. So we don't let them on anyway. But what's happened is it's created like a sense of family. And then once a month, I do now a show where all my Zoom after show, attendees become the show. Wow. So the practice now is when you come multiple times, you actually become part of the show. And we're evolving this whole conversation where now I want Tom to post his notes every day. But the reason I bring it up is I was saying to the guys, I don't know that I would have had this conversation with you. In fact, I know I wouldn't have had this conversation with you July 27th, when we were originally meant to. I've changed, I've grown, things have just, I've learned how to listen better. And I'm so much richer for it. So I just wanted to share that. And I also wanted to share with you one little anecdote, and then I'm going to not say another word for the rest of this time so that these guys can talk to you. I was doing a project for Pepsi years and years and years ago. And we ended up going to this, it was like a hole in the wall, like almost concept shoe store in LA. And it belonged to a guy who's an entrepreneur, but he used to be the creative director at Converse and Reebok. He's designed shoes for, for several basketball players. I remember he said David Beckham, and he was just, this was his little business. And I remember looking at the shoes, and one shoe, I'd never seen a shoe so ugly in my life. It was a boot, but it had like galoshes type of plastic. It had a sock around the actual shoe, and it had both laces and a bow. It was just like a monstrosity. Mm-hmm. And I turned around and I said to him, I don't understand the shoe. I don't get it. It's like there's a sock around the shoe. He said, let me tell you something. He said, the shoe is here for a specific reason. I know, he said, that 99% of people will have the same reaction that you did, because probably that is the right reaction. He said, but when you come into my store, you know that I have a point of view. He said, you might not understand it, you might not agree with it, but you'll respect me for it. I never forgot that advice.
That's right.
And that is I wanted to share that with you because of the power of respect. He had earned respect for having a point of view. And when you said right at the end, we may not agree with one another, but if we can respect one another and allow this conversation, CoronaTV has become a place to talk about everything going on, from COVID to police brutality, to injustice, to inequality, to just raising.
Guys, you can't talk right now.
I'll mute you, Joey. It's okay. Joey's kids.
I have that problem.
I thought I muted it first.
No, Joey's making us all get really quiet all of a sudden.
Joey, that's about as stern as I've seen Joey with his kids. So it's become really a great platform. And one of our guests this week, Bob Walheim in Sao Paulo, he moved his family to an island right now, and he's working from that island. He actually started a website for people to express their anxiety, their fear, their depression, whatever the case is. And he said something else that I thought was amazing, and I wanted to share that with you. He said, it's a place for people to actually talk and talk publicly. He said, but when you talk out loud, you actually listen to yourself. Mm-hmm. And maybe part of what would help our entire country heal and unite is to actually listen to ourselves when we talk.
I've been saying that, Joseph, for 30 years. I've been telling people, look, everybody on the screen, every one of us in this Zoom room, we've probably had conversations where we came away having learned something, not just from what we heard the other person say, but what we heard ourselves saying in that conversation. That's why Socrates just didn't sit in his room and philosophize. He went out and talked to people on the street, because he realized that in conversation, that conversation at its best isn't just expressing, it's a form of thinking. And it's like some of us have to write to clarify our thoughts, but when writing is not available, we talk to clarify our thoughts. Otherwise, we could just have the most vagueness in our heads, and vague thoughts cannot motivate specific behavior. So when we talk to other people, when we write things down, we clarify. It's a very powerful form of thinking. And I hope people use the internet more, not just to blast out their opinions, but to actually have conversations where they're thinking aloud, they're thinking with their fingertips, as we are right now with our voices. But, Jamal, it's just, you're gonna generate lots of conversations amongst us for a long time to come, because you were so vulnerable and you were so honest in telling your story. And at our best, that's what we all seek to do, right? We have to put on the armor in the arena, but when we're not fighting the fight, we can take the armor off, and we really share with each other in such powerful ways that help us all, not need external armor, but to have that stoic sensibility that we're at peace. Even if somebody's in my face, I can be at peace, because I know who I am, and you obviously know who you are, and now we know who you are, which helps us know ourselves better. It's just this amazing thing. That's why I love being a philosopher.
And I just want to say one thing, and Seth and Joey, Jamal's he has about 4 minutes left, 4 or 5 minutes left if you want to add something. But it also dawns on me when we talk about vitriol and raising the level of meaningful dialogue. It's so easy to hide behind a keyboard and hide behind a tweet, and be brash and you know and critical. It's much harder when you show your face and when you actually talk out loud and you share. And I think we just got to do more of that.
Yeah. Amen. Amen, brother.
Great.
So I've been excited for Joe to have this conversation with you, Jamal, only because I remember being in high school in 98, 99 and playing NBA Live on N64.
Yeah.
One of my friends was a huge Heat fan, and I could not stop him from hitting baseline jumpers with you. So every time I hear your name from then on, when you're on ESPN, anything, I can't hear your name without picturing my friend schooling me with that shot over and over and over again.
That's
so,
awesome.
Thanks for bringing that back. But I never thought that 20 years later, I'd be sitting here listening to you talk about your life and your story. So many things that I didn't know. And it's one just great to get to experience this with you, to experience your humility. I've been reading a lot of Jim Collins again lately, and you are very much so a type 5 kind of leader. It's just so cool to get this time with you. But in what we've been talking about with respect and conversation, I think like Joey, I've got a lot of friends and family that are on the other side of the political spectrum as me. And I've actually refrained from posting stuff on social media and started now a newsletter, because anytime I would post anything, I have so many friends that just combat each other, and I don't want to create that environment. So I want to kind of share what's going on in my world with maybe a little bit of a political point of view on it, but I don't want that fighting to happen. So the impetus at the end of the newsletter is always, call me, contact me, email me, anything you want, but let's have a conversation. Let's not just hash this out on Facebook in the comments like we've always tried to do, because we know after 10 years it doesn't work.
Correct. Well said, Seth. I mean, for me, it's, my fiance, she tells me all the time, she's on Facebook and has her point of view and is cutting people off, deleting people, unfollowing people, and all these different things. I say to her, I said, you should be grateful and thankful for the platform, regardless of what their view is. Now they have a greater understanding of where you stand, and that's the most clarity that you need, essentially. And I've always big believer in it. It's like why guys are so successful in the NBA over 10, 15, and even 20 years career is they transition as players throughout that particular time. So you have to continue to evolve, but you also have to let people know and bring them close to you that you are evolving, because it actually becomes a mirror to them of showing them what they're not doing. And I've often found that, when I get into disagreement with partners and they're on the other side of the aisle, I'm a registered independent, but I talk to them about, well, let's get away from other things. How do you want to treat another human being?
Yeah. Make it basic. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you want to treat another human being, and how do you want another human being to treat your son or your daughter? And I personalize it that way.
Yeah, there you go.
It's beautiful.
And try not to get too personal with them, where they revert back to their aggression or their experiences or their guilt or whatever it may be. I often try to say, well, how do you treat human beings? How do you want people to treat your mom or to treat your daughter or your sister, or even you, for that example? So I applaud you, Seth, for creating that newsletter and being a voice, because now you've really identified, who you are in your particular space, and that will either attract or detour people away from you, which is probably in your best interest.
Yeah. No, thanks. That's great.
Well,
appreciate it.
Jamal, I also wanted to thank you because I have two little dudes who you heard
What's
me
that dude's
at.
name? What's that dude's name?
Cannon. This is Cannon.
Hey, Cannon. How you doing?
And they get to go to soccer practice, and this is my oldest. This is Kingston.
Hey,
And
Kingston.
they're both soccer stars and basketball stars. This one was his number one in his school, and this one is number one in his school.
Awesome.
And
And Daddy?
hold on. Yeah.
He's a professional basketball.
He was a professional basketball player. Now he's a businessman, and he's just a super nice man.
And now he's a professional human being.
And now he's a professional human.
Shouldn't we all be? You know?
Exactly.
I loved the lesson that you taught with your jersey, considering that what I was talking with my friends about before you jumped on was that it's hard to follow a man of your accomplishments as a kid. Fortunately, my kids don't have to worry about that. but what I do like about this is I was a varsity athlete in high school, but I teach and I coach 3 of their teams, and we coach that all the time. It's not about soccer. It's not about basketball. It's not about baseball. It's about discipline, teamwork, overcoming, victory. And that's been so key for their growth, their confidence, how they attack every project, whether it's Legos or playing cards or even doing their homework. It's the same amount of discipline that's been necessary. So I just want to thank you, because it's neat to see men at your level who coached their children, that sports isn't a sport in and itself. It's a way, it's a vehicle, right?
It's a tool.
It's a vessel.
Yeah, it's a tool.
It's a vessel to get things done and to learn from. And so I just think you're an amazing young man, and it was great to watch you today. So
thank you. I appreciate that. And Joey, if I may make a suggestion, as you're coaching your kids, one thing that I did with my son, a little bit unsuccessful with my daughter, because she wanted to be, I had to identify with her what she wanted out of sport. She wanted just the camaraderie. So I had to kind of, and I got it and everything like that. So I didn't push her the way that my son allowed me to push him. But one thing that I did is that for my son is I gave him the ability, when I coached him, really to express himself and see the game from his perspective, because what I wanted him to identify, good coaching versus bad coaching. And as he moved up the ranks, he was able to identify, well, this coach doesn't know what he's talking about. Not because it was just something, he wasn't getting playing time or different things like that, actually in the verbiage. So what I allowed, when my son was 15 years old, I coached and sponsored an Under Armour team. I would call timeout in these games. Tell me what you see. Why don't you draw up the play? Why don't you do all these different things? I gave the kids the reins and empowered them that they had to make decisions, not just follow, but to lead as well. And what I noticed from my son, now he's able, when he went through the recruiting process, he was able to sit there and listen to coaches and say, oh, well, pardon my French, oh, he's bullshitting, he was able to identify it, and it worked in life for itself. Kids he came across, adults that want to befriend him because of what he does, not exactly because of who he is. So I've given him the platform at 15, 14 years old, and all of his teammates, draw up what you want to draw up. Let's go execute it. It empowers them rather than also leaning on, because the other thing that I wanted to do for my son was give him what my mother gave me, and was, don't depend on me, stand on your own 2 feet.
Right.
So I utilized that as a tool. And then also what it made, Joey, it took the pressure off of me as a coach, and allowed me to enjoy the moment rather just coaching, and ride in the vehicle where they feel a part of it, even in wins and losses. Oh, maybe we should have did this. Now they're starting to learn, because they're actually interacting, and they're becoming the coach, and they see sitting in that other seat is different, but it's very identical,
And also,
it's great advice. Thanks.
And also 2 things. You always hear advice for athletes to relax and enjoy the game. It's great to hear it from the perspective of a coach needing to do that as well, to relax and enjoy it and let go. And then, of course, the other thing, which is so obvious listening to Jamal, is the advice that you've and the help that you've given your kids in terms of identifying a good and a bad coach. That will set them for life in terms of good and bad managers, and maybe even good and bad, people. Exactly.
And you also showed real leaders create other leaders, not just followers. And that's what you're doing for the kids on the team. You're turning them into leaders. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I'm a Minnesota native, so now I'm looking forward to watching the Gophers.
Yeah. Aren't we all, considering COVID-19? I think I got word that they probably start their basketball season November 25th, and I think football and obviously Big Ten, they're going to be starting here soon as well.
Yeah, Big Ten's doing it again.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. Huh?
Jamal, I know you've got to run, but I say this to every guest, and you are no different. Which is, you're always welcome to pop in anytime, the Zoom after show, and become part of the team. I already feel comfortable to call you family.
I appreciate that. And that was one thing I was going to ask was, is it possible for me to join the after show? Because I like the,
no.
Okay, I know. Okay, my bad.
We don't want cool, evolved people to be
only if I can watch you and Seth going toe to toe in NBA on what was it, PlayStation or?
Back in the day, it was in 64, but
yeah, in 64. Well, I'm pretty good. I play with now with my son NBA 2K. I play with Michael Jordan on the all-time great team, but then sometimes I switch back and forth to it was a Charlotte all-time great team. So I'm a little bit of a ball hog with myself. On that, so.
Didn't you play young Michael Jordan in an old Gatorade commercial or something? Wasn't that you?
No, it was I'm trying to think of who that was. There were so many copycats of Michael Jordan at that particular time.
Yeah.
So, you did, if I recall correctly, you did score 50. I mean, I read you scored 50 points in a game against Michael Jordan's Bulls.
Well, yeah. So he wasn't playing. That's the year he retired, and Scottie Pippen was the guy, and he was supposed to be a great defender, but I soon nixed that, so no, it's actually me and Michael Jordan. I tell people this story. They're like, and I got to jump here in a little bit, but I share with people, and it's kind of what Joseph was referring to. Sometimes you put up this other character, and people don't realize I was a huge Michael Jordan fan at the end of his career than at the beginning of his career. And people ask me, well, why? I said, well, I'm the type of guy that, I've been around a lot of great athletes, and Michael Jordan's career in his early part, he was a great athlete. But when he was with the Washington Wizards, he was 43 years old, had no athleticism. It really showed, and he still averaged 25 points a game. It really showed what command he had of himself and of the game, and it really displayed more greatness when you have little than when you have a lot.
Amazing.
And a lot of people differ with me on that. I said, Michael Jordan's the best player. And they were like, well, what about LeBron? I said, I'm waiting to see what LeBron looks like at 43 years old.
That's wise. That's very old.
And, because you can everybody talks about legacy when somebody's 25 years old. If we go back when we're all 25, we don't want that to be a part of our legacy. I mean, so no, but I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for this after show. And Joseph, I'm very serious of taking you up on coming to be a part of this. So let's figure that out,
Absolutely. I mean, it was an absolute pleasure. And I feel very inspired and humbled today. And, I think Bob Farnham, who actually is one of our regulars too, he didn't join the after show today, but he said, the fact that he said, you make me want to be a better parent. I mean, that was the most beautiful thing. So,
wow, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Tom. Really appreciate you guys.
Have a great weekend.
Have a good one. Nice meeting you. Bye-bye.
Wow, that was very special. Seth, I loved your contribution today. It was just it's just such a beautiful, I mean, the concept that you were playing, a game with these characters, with these heroes, with these sports, stars. Yeah. And now you're sitting talking to the person behind the gaming character.
Yeah, it's really surreal.
It's surreal for me, just like watching.
Yeah. what was so cool about that and the way it plugged into what Jamal did during the show itself is that it's so easy for people on podcasts and webcasts and TV shows to get all caught up with ideas only, just abstract ideas. The idea of a brand, the idea of a this, the idea of a that. And what we did today was we deep dove into real life. Jamal's real life growing up, your real life playing a game with a character. It wasn't just about ideas. It was about reality. It was about the life we live. And that's where ideas should always be grounded and rooted. Like a plant, you pull a plant out of the ground, it's not going to continue to grow. It's going to die. That's the way ideas are. And so today we were keeping the ideas rooted in the real life soil. And I love that about today's show.
Yeah. And even, by the way, going back to the very beginning of him saying, that he used to play different characters, and I mean, that concept was just mind blowing. I also just thought that it was so, by the way, it's not a fluke that I also choose the National Day. I mean, if I'd chosen like National Pecan Pie Day, I could have. It wasn't National Pecan Pie Day, but there are some frivolous ones. But when you can actually even just match a national day to the status of your guest, and that alone can birth the conversation that it birthed. I mean, that to me, that's what I look back and I'm like, how cool was that? And then, of course, the whole idea of transitions, how his whole life was really, the transitions for him started way, way before the actual basketball court or basketball to business. It was the transition of the people coming in and out of the train as he went to school. Mind blowing.
This would just make a good movie. I mean, all this stuff today, and I mean, the transitions, what he said there at the end about Michael Jordan, it reminded me of this book of Cicero's that's originally called On Aging, but it was recently retranslated as A Life Well Spent. And Cicero is reflecting on the things, everybody talks about what we lose as we age. But what people need to really focus on is the things we gain as we age. And that's basically the Michael Jordan story with the Wizards, right? His mastery of the game, his mastery of himself. Yeah, he lost all that muscle mass and that youthful energy and speed and all this kind of stuff. But he was able to still, do impressive things with the wisdom of age, as we say. There's a lot more to that than most people think.
Well, I'm gonna email him afterwards and say, listen, your biography or autobiography, it's called Transitions. Now let's get it written. Now let's get it written.
Yeah, I'm gonna register that website. Right?
No, don't do that. Transitions by Joseph Jaffe with 2 E's.
Yeah, there you go. I got excited the other day on Facebook, right?
That was I mean, I have to go back and find, I mean, there's so many things that I just want to go back, I mean, for every action, there's a reaction and both are necessary. The money mission idea, minutes played was his metric. The jersey swap story. I'm just looking at all my notes, getting out of your comfort zone.
You could do an amazing blog on minutes played and opportunity, and just staying in the game. That as an aspirational thing, because he has this long view that a lot of people lack, people who want results right away.
Oh my goodness. I mean, like this whole idea that you said the supply chain was my body. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
he also said that your behavior on the court is how you act in life.
Yeah.
And I think that's really accurate because
you're humble or you selfish.
Yeah, and if you're selfish, which is he was talking about, and I think that's also, he didn't mention it because he's a nice guy, but I don't know if you guys watched the documentary about the Bulls, but it's incredible.
I haven't yet. No.
Check it out. It's amazing. Michael Jordan has always been one of my favorite athletes, but he was not a likable guy in the beginning of his career. And when he first came out of North Carolina, he was the player, scoring 40, 50, 55, 60 points, but they weren't winning. And Phil basically came in when he came into the Bulls and said, hey, this isn't about you, dude. This is about the team, and you got to be a teammate, and you can lead this team or we won't win. So it's not about how many scores you can make. It's how much you can get this team to do what you need them to do as the leader. And that whole documentary talks about that, because Michael Jordan is by far the most competitive human being I've ever witnessed on any documentary about any sport, because he doesn't, it's not just that he's competing on the basketball court. He'll compete in pinochle. He'll compete in Scrabble. He'll compete in dice. He'll do, and he loves betting. So like, he would beat kids. They talk about this, like in the sense of he was playing a kid. He wouldn't let anyone win. He just could not lose. It drove him crazy. And so, I think that's a big piece of it too, is Michael Jordan's transitions were great.
I'm actually
the show.
I'm actually like that with competitive eating. I will not let kids win.
Yeah, that's
I've only entered one competition which I won, and it was I left a lot of kids crying. I didn't care, but it was a pie eating competition, and without hands, of course. So you could only use your face. And I just crushed him. I crushed him. It wasn't even close. I've always, that's my bucket list, is to enter Nathan's hot dog eating competition.
I'll never do that. In high school, we had a cheeseburger eating contest at McDonald's, and the loser had to pay. And so in high school, that's a lot of money in high school, right? Because even if it's 50 cents or 60 cents a burger or whatever it was, it was a lot of burger. I ate 18. So I had to go on one side of the restaurant and my buddy had to go on the other, and he ate 22 cheeseburgers. I ate 18 and I was sick for like 2 days. I barfed. I could not, it was just, I'll never do that again.
That's right.
Major respect. You see how we've this is the beauty. This is the arc of Corona TV, is we soar to the highest of the highs,
the depths, right?
And then, so I just want to
crash down on gluttony.
So I just want to say one thing before I go, and I'll just say goodbye to everyone out there. I'm going to stop the recordings.